wouldn't last a single night in the Middle Ages. Forget the tales of knights and maidens. Forget the candlelit banquets and the songs of wandering bards. The Middle Ages were no dream. They were a long, sleepless vigil, a place where every dawn was a wager against death. And death? She always stacked the deck. In the next few minutes, I'll show you why none of us would survive even a single day in that world. Not for lack of courage, but because the past was never meant for human beings to live in. Start with food, because everything begins where hunger ends. Bread wasn't nourishment, it was survival, compressed, dense, dark, filled with shards of stone, ground from the mill. Your teeth grated, your teeth broke, but the worst thing wasn't the stones. It was the ergot, a fungus that grew on rye, invisible, inevitable. It crept into the bread, into the body, and then the visions began. Entire villages saw demons, witches, angels, burning in fire. It wasn't hysteria, it was poison. But how could you tell madness from possession when everyone around you was seeing the same hell? Now breathe in. No, you can't. Medieval cities had no sewers, only windows. And from those windows, they threw everything: feces, urine, animal remains, a single warning cry. Gardy-loo, beware the water. But it wasn't water. You walked through the mud. No, not just mud. The stench rose from the rivers, from the alleys, from the very clothes you'd worn for months. Lice lived in your hair, fleas in your bed, and baths, opening your pores, was an invitation to death itself. So you waited, spring, summer, maybe a bath, maybe not. If the food didn't kill you, if the sickness didn't find you, the work would. You woke before sunrise and slept long after it. 16 hours in the fields, wooden plow, slow ox, hands torn open. Children began at 7. Apprentices lived with masters who shaped them like iron. 6 days a week, 14 years, to learn a trade if they survived. Blacksmiths breathed smoke, tanners soaked hides in urine and poison. Their skin turned yellow. The smell followed them forever. 30 years, that was the limit. Your body broke, your back bent, your teeth fell out, and no one asked how you felt, because you could still work. And if you broke the rules that changed from village to village, rules no one explained. Steal bread to keep from starving, lose your hand, cut a tree in the king's forest, lose your life. But first, the trial, not with lawyers, with iron, hot, burning iron. Hold it, walk 3 meters. If your wounds healed in 3 days, God had absolved you. If they festered, and they always did, you were guilty. Or water, tied and thrown into the river. Sink, innocent, float, guilty, execute him. The system guaranteed one thing: you never won. And executions, they were cute festivals. Families came with food, children watched, because entertainment was rare, and the sound of a neck breaking was music. And if you ran from the village, the laws, the labor, you'd find war, 100 years of it, more, wars that outlived generations. You were born during a battle and died during another. Armor? Only for nobles. You wore cloth, maybe bits of metal, maybe nothing. The deadliest weapon wasn't the sword, it was the longbow, arrows that pierced bone, archers trained from childhood, their skeletons warped by tension. But you didn't die fighting. You died waiting, during the siege. Months without food, rats, cats, and then each other. Armies didn't fight you, they fought around you. They burned your crops, killed your cattle, destroyed your home, and moved on. You stayed with nothing. Now put it all together: the stench, the hunger, the disease, the labor, the injustice, the war, the fear, the superstition, an eclipse, the end of the world, a wise woman, a witch, a deformed child, punishment from God. You had no privacy, your family all in one room, strangers in your bed at the inn. You had no news, a message 50 kilometers away took days. From another country, months, and you had no choice. Born a peasant, die a peasant. 90% of humanity trapped where the earth had spat them out. This was the medieval world, not a fairy tale, but a long, sleepless vigil, a test of survival. Few ever passed, but there was something worse than all of that, something that spared no one: the plague. It began as a rumor, a village to the north, then 2, then 10, then it was at your door, black swellings under your arms, in your groin, on your neck. Your skin turned purple, then black, the smell of rotting flesh while you were still alive. 3 days, that's all you had. From first symptom to final breath. Entire families gone in a week, villages abandoned, doors marked with red crosses. Do not enter, only death inside. Doctors wore long-beaked masks stuffed with herbs, not to cure, to block the smell of the dying. Because there was no cure, there never was. 50 million dead, half of Europe gone in 5 years. You didn't bury the dead anymore, you stacked them. And if you survived the plague, there were others who didn't. Women giving birth alone, in darkness and silence. 1 in 3 died bringing life. The babies, half never saw their first year. Disease, hunger, cold. Their names never written, because why write down what would soon be gone? Lepers, banished beyond the walls, ringing bells, so the living could flee. Unclean approaches, their faces decayed, their fingers fell, and no one touched them, not even in death. The insane, chained in basements, beaten in the name of salvation, displayed in squares for coins, and orphans, sold, used, discarded, children, in mines, on docks, in darkness, where sunlight never reached. These were the invisible ones, those whom time erased, but they lived and suffered more than anyone, and when all else failed, returned to the church. But salvation had a price: indulgences, coins for forgiveness, your sins erased, your soul bought back if you could pay. If not, hell awaited, a place of fire, of torment, painted on every wall of every cathedral, so you'd never forget. The priest spoke Latin you didn't understand, but you nodded anyway, because doubt was heresy, and heresy was the fire. Ask too much, think too much, and you'd burn alive while the crowd watched and prayed for your damned soul. The church was everything: your calendar, your law, your hope, your fear. You were born under its bells and died, waiting for its mercy, but mercy rarely came to the poor. But maybe the worst of all wasn't what happened to the body. It was what happened to the mind. You lived in shadows, literal shadows, weak candles, dying fires. The night was absolute. No lamps, no lights, only darkness, entire. And in that darkness, fear grew. Wolves, bandits, demons, ghosts of the unburied. Every sound, a threat. Every movement, a sign. You didn't know why you got sick, why the crops failed, why the rain never came. So you invented reasons, witches, curses, God's wrath, and when you found someone to blame, you burned them, because it was easier to kill an old woman than to admit you didn't understand the world. No books, no schools, no answers, only stories passed from mouth to mouth until lies became truth. You died, never knowing how the world worked, never knowing there was more beyond your village, never knowing it could have been different. And that was the greatest prison of all, not the chains on your wrists, but the chains in your mind. Now you understand. The Middle Ages weren't an era, they were a cycle, one that repeated generation after generation. You were born in pain, you grew in ignorance, you worked in agony and died in despair. Your children did the same, and theirs, and theirs. There was no progress, no improvement, only survival, only endurance, and the most terrifying part, they didn't know it could be different. They thought that was how the world was meant to be. Suffer, obey, die, repeat. This was the medieval world, not romance, not glory, but a waking nightmare. You never escaped, because when you died, your child woke up in the same nightmare. So next time you complain about your life, stop. You drink clean water. You eat food without poison. You sleep without fear. Your child goes to school, learns, grows, chooses. You have light at night, warmth in winter, medicine when you're ill, justice, flawed but real when you're wronged. You live twice, 3 times, 4 times longer than they did, and still complain about Mondays. But I'm not judging you. I'm reminding you that we are the first humans in history for whom life is not a daily fight for survival. We are the first who can dream of more than just surviving. And that is the true miracle. Not that we escaped the Middle Ages, but that our ancestors survived them for us. If this story changed how you see your present, leave a like, and if you wish to keep exploring the shadows that shaped our world, subscribe. Until the next vigil.